order the Tuesday, May 21st meeting. Of the Monmouth City Council. Everybody's speakers off and muted. I would like. Okay. No. I would like to start with the roll call by Phyllis Pullman, our city clerk, please.
Here.
Is excused. Counselor McKeel. Present. Counselor Oberst.
Here.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros.
Here.
Mayor Coombs.
I am present. And for the flag salute this evening, Councillor Oberst, would you lead us in that? Thank you. And I do want to mention that tonight's meeting is focused on Monmouth City Council business. The general public comment time scheduled for items not on the agenda will be coming up, and that time is limited to 15 minutes. The council is aware of the possible siting of an emergency housing shelter for people experiencing homelessness at the corner of Church and Stadium. Church at the Park has indicated they will be invoking the state law that resulted from the Housing Emergency Bill 3395 to operate a shelter at the site. Church at the Park has requested to meet with city planning and development staff in a process known as the pre-application conference. This gives the city an opportunity to review a draft proposal and discuss the application review process in more detail with the applicant. If Church at the Park elects to move forward with their emergency shelter proposal, they will need to submit a more formal application using the House Bill 3395 process. Under the state law passed in 2023, local governments, such as cities and counties, are required to grant applications to site emergency housing shelters that meet specific criteria. The city has developed a process for assessing requests under this law, and a copy of the application form and link to the copy of the House Bill 3395 are available on the city's website. If such a request is made, the City Council has committed to provide an opportunity for public comment about the issue. Tonight, we are not considering any specific proposal. And under the law, the city does not have much control over the decision. It is not appealable to a city body, but we will accept comments about the issue once we know what is proposed. If a proposal for siting an emergency housing shelter does come before council and you want to be notified in the future, please use the sign-up sheet at the back. Sabre Jewel will help you to make sure that you know specifically when we are taking those comments, and you will be specifically contacted. So tonight we'll start off with our consent calendar and then take about 15 minutes of public comments. I have some speakers cards up here, and we'll call you up front at that time. Our consent calendar was the minutes of April 16th and the minutes of April 30th. Were there any additions or corrections to those? Hearing none, a motion?
So moved. To approve.
Second.
It has been moved to by Councillor Oberst and seconded by Counselor Salinas Solis-Barros. Consent calendar as submitted. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and none opposed, so thank you for that. And that will bring us to our public comment period. So when I call you up, if you are interested in speaking, please join us in the front. We'll ask your name and residence, and then be sure that you push the button on the microphone so that it's red. Red means on, and we can hear your comments. And we'll be timing those for 3 minutes each. Thank you. First, Jody Russell.
My name is Jody Russell, and I live on Hoffman Road in Monmouth. I want to clear a couple things up first before I get started. I do not work for any city, county, or state agency. I do not work for Church at the Park or any other social services nonprofit. I became involved in learning about our affordable housing and homelessness crisis in rural Polk County after watching what happened in Salem. I watched them repeatedly fail to agree on a location for a transitional shelter as their homelessness crises got worse and worse. Now they have over 1,000 people living without shelter in Marion County and West Salem. The longer these folks remain on the street and in the parks, the harder it will be to transition them into traditional housing. I want to get ahead of this problem here so we don't see homeless campers in front of our businesses and in our parks, but also so that people don't have to live in tents, cars, RVs, and abandoned buildings. This is about compassion and in the interest of keeping our communities clean and safe. In March, the FCO was actively working with 45 individuals living in cars, tents, RVs, and abandoned buildings. 2 of these were unaccompanied minors. They were also working with 19 families comprised of 33 adults and 30 kids. That is a total of 108 people living in rural Polk County without shelter, with 32 being under 18. Also, more than half of the adults are women. I don't have the exact number of older adults, 55 plus, but this age group is the fastest growing group of homeless individuals in the country due to the housing cost increases and the fact that many of these folks live on fixed incomes or have health conditions. As of May 17th, the FCO is actively working with 123 total individuals, up from 108. The number of individuals in families without shelter grew from 66 to 71. The number of unhoused children in families is up from 30 to 36. And the number of unaccompanied minors from 2 to 3. This is while the FCO is actively working to prevent homelessness and rehouse as many people as they can with vouchers and the rapid rehousing program. The FCO is doing great work, but people are still falling into homelessness at a faster rate than the FCO can transition them out. And that's where this transitional shelter comes in. Church at the Park applied for a grant made up of state funds through the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance in order to open a shelter to provide both shelter and wraparound services with case management to house people experiencing homelessness in rural Polk County, not including West Salem. After hearing from both Monmouth and Dallas residents that no one liked the idea of one site to house 40 people, they have revised their plan to house 14 individuals in Monmouth and have a family site in Dallas. Neither site will be a walk-up, one-night-only shelter. Church at the Park sites are part of a program that has an admission process that prioritizes vulnerable individuals. They have rules that must be agreed to and followed. Services are provided along with shelter to enable folks to reach their goals. Okay, I'll submit the rest of it. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Jason Ridgway, same, come on up, name, residence, and push the red button.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Jason Ridgway. I live on Sterling Drive. The reason why I'm here tonight is to discuss the homeless shelter proposals. The city will be entertaining some pre-applications soon, and I just wanted to make sure that there was a reminder from the community on where some of us, many of us in the community stand on the issue. If you recall, a little less than a year ago, some of the council was present at a hearing, took place at the annex building on Talmadge. Some of the council was not present. You can look at the notes of those that were. It was a room approximately this size, a little bit smaller, standing room only. Many people had strong opinions of their concerns about a shelter coming into our town, our beloved city of Monmouth, that we all chose to live here and want to preserve it. Approximately 9 or 10 people, to my recollection, voiced support for the proposed shelters coming into Monmouth. All others were adamantly opposed to them. I wanted to remind the council that this is a very unpopular idea for us to, in theory, it's importing homelessness into our town. We do have some homeless residents within Monmouth. Currently, it's a rather small number. However, the word spreads. We have a large homeless population outside of Monmouth. Salem has quite a few. I drive through Salem almost daily, and I see evidence of people who are not housed, who are not doing well, quite frankly. Lots of drug use, lots of illegal activity, disregard for community norms and standards. I don't want to see that happen in Monmouth. Many of our residents don't want to see that happen either. So my purpose for coming in tonight is to remind the council that when you have a decision to make, yes, there is an ability to push back on the state and to review those applications very carefully and scrutinize them carefully. And I think that if we capitulate to members of the state or other entities outside of Monmouth, then that sends a message that more ideas like this will come to our city. I just like the council to be aware of that and to keep this issue at the forefront. This is a very important issue. It didn't make the agenda. However, I don't know of any of these items that are currently on the agenda that would outweigh the importance of this crisis in our city. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Angel Swanson.
Hi, I'm Angel Swanson. I live on Gwynn Street East, and it's my first time addressing you all, and I'm very pleased to be here. I live in Monmouth with my family. I have a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we love it here. I love it when my kids can run outside, and I feel safe and totally confident that they're going to be fine. They're going to hang out with their neighbors, and everything's going to be great. And when I first heard about the shelter, like a lot of people, I got nervous. I got, oh my gosh, my kids, I came here to be safe. What's going to happen? So of course, I was reactive. And when you're reactive, you get active. And so people show up at meetings because they're scared. But then I thought, well, there's got to be more to this story, because this is not just a problem for Monmouth, which is 123 homeless people doesn't feel like a low number to me. It feels like a big number to me, especially when we're talking about kids. I'm a parent and I can't imagine my kids living in a car or in a tent. And I can't imagine being a mom with kids who doesn't have a home in a town like this. 123 people is not a small number. This is a problem all across the state. The effort that the state has taken is to give everyone an opportunity to house their own community members in need. This is not an importing problem. We aren't the only game in town. The small thing we're looking to do to take care of our own neighbors is not a beacon for people to show up. They don't want to be here. They want to be where they are from. They want to be in their own homes. And using the example and the scare tactic of talking about homeless people in parks in Salem is not true. And it doesn't allow us to really sit in our bodies, in our lives, in our communities, and look at our neighbors and consider, would you be okay with a senior citizen living in her car, like a 74-year-old woman who had a fixed income and couldn't help the fact that her rent kept going up? And then she was forced to move into her car with her cat. And then she was homeless. Rainy Portland in the winter, because there wasn't an emergency shelter like this for her to live in. And I'm sorry, if my grandmother was in that situation, I wouldn't be proud of us, because we were afraid to put something together because of imaginary thoughts that don't have any actual foundation. I mean, there's no proof that those things happen. You don't set up a shelter and then invite people in. That's not what happens. You set up a shelter to take care of the people that you care about, which is our community. I have kids, and I feel very confident that this plan is safe. The rules, the thoughtfulness, the rigor, and the proven effectiveness of this approach to house unhoused, vulnerable children, mothers, and elderly makes me confident that even though my 3-year-old goes to a daycare around the corner from this site, I'm 100% confident that they're as safe with this shelter as they are without it right now. I'm more concerned about activated, uninformed people who are spreading things that I'm not proud to share with my kids. That in a community like this that cares about their neighbors won't act on a very rare and valuable and precious opportunity to take care of the people who need it the most and show my kids our values are in action. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Ed Garland?
I had a hip replacement and I strained it, so a little
Oh,
gingerly.
okay, be careful. Have a seat. Red is on. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, hi, I'm Ed Garland. I'm a resident of Monmouth. I'm not against a homeless shelter. I am against where it's being placed. I work at the university. It's being placed on our front doorstep of the university, right where all people who come to our university park. It's also being placed right in the middle of our student housing. I'm a father first. I have daughters, and trust me, I do not feel comfortable having a homeless shelter on my campus in my student housing areas that places our students possibly at risk. Now, there's a difference between homelessness and addicted. Okay, we're talking about low barrier shelters. Is that correct? Okay, well, low barrier
We
shelters.
don't have a proposal yet.
Low barrier shelters means there is no accountability for who goes in there. They cannot use on-site, but they can use off-site. There is no rules that state that they have to be sober. And that is a concern, and it should be a concern to everybody if we're bringing in homeless people or unhoused families, seniors, is which I'm being told that's what it is, but there's not enough information out there that's telling us exactly what this organization is bringing to Monmouth. So I think that as a body here, that you guys need to get out better information for the community so that we know exactly what Church of the Park is doing, who they're bringing into our community, how it's being policed. Because if it's not being policed, and then all of a sudden the crime or whatever, and I'm not saying homeless people are going to come in here and create crime, but there's a chance if it's addicts, alcoholics that aren't in treatment, because low barrier means they don't have to be in treatment. So that's my concern, is who are we putting in this place? Why is it in the center of our student housing and on the front porch of the university, which this university cannot hemorrhage one more student. It is the largest employer in this town, and we can't have.
Thank you. That's your time. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we're doing okay on our 15 minutes. Linda Kasparek. You're up. Same thing.
Hi, I agree with so much of what Ed just said. And so I'll just, go on about it a little bit more from my experiences, my gut, and my heart. I moved here thinking that this is just a beautiful little place that's safe, and there are many seniors and who enjoy going to WU, who like the lack of traffic, who don't have to have a barricade around their house entirely, and that this was going to be so sweet to come to. And it is, except it's been a concern since moving here that I know we as a country even don't take good care of our people that have diseases, and mental health, addictions are diseases. We don't handle it properly. We put a Band-Aid on, and a lot of money goes into doing this, and the Band-Aid comes off, and the people continue with their problems, and it becomes our problems too. And we're a small town. We're going to have a disproportionate number of people who are unhoused. They're going to get out of there, or they're going to be more services that have to be brought here to take care of them. And when we have more services, then we'll have more people come that need those services. And our little stores downtown won't be able to make it. I mean, we don't have the health care to provide, or the mental health care, physical or mental. And I'm also concerned about, they start with one building and then maybe an apartment complex next to it. And that kind of sets the precedent that then it's going to be more commercial, more housing coming in. And it's not appropriate to have that much in a small little town. It's not fair, really, to people that live here to have to take care of and provide for everyone that wants to come here. How do we support that? And how do we maintain the lifestyle that we're here for? And so many people that have worked at WU and took pride in working here, and WU is going down the tubes if this thing goes through and it keeps expanding. WU might even become a destination housing spot. Who knows? I mean, this has to end. I mean, it has to start and end both. We have to do something, but it's really got to be monitored. It's got to be limited in size, and we just can't pretend like it's not happening because we can compartmentalize. This is like going to affect our children, our grandchildren, and continue on forever.
Okay,
And
thank you, Linda. That was your 3 minutes.
okay, I could do this for 8 hours. So thanks for listening to me.
Thank
I
you.
hope you'll listen to some of it.
And we did have a couple more comments, but they appear to be on the same issues. So I'm going to go ahead and move on with our business agenda this evening. That was our 15 minutes that we set aside for this. Again, we're going to have other meetings. Yeah, and I mentioned we would have about 15 minutes. We've taken the first 5 speakers that arrived early. So we're going to go ahead and start with our business. We're gonna start with our business agenda this evening, and our first item tonight is actually an update from our Chamber of Commerce.
All right. Thank you for having me here tonight. I have been waiting to come and update you. And in putting this together tonight, I realized that June 1st is the end of my 3rd year with the Chamber, which has gone by in record time and has probably been the most exciting and just amazing 3 years of my profession in nonprofits. I'm very fortunate to be in Monmouth and cover independence also. So the report kind of is going to cover a little bit of all 3 years, I think, because we're a little bit late reporting this year and because everything takes 18 months. So it's not annually that these things happen. First, we'll talk about membership. We're holding steady around 230s. We were up to 260 at one point, and that was, thank goodness, due to some ARPA funds and some quick growth when I started. Honestly, we can handle 230 to 250 really well. I mean me. So that's awesome, and I feel like I can give the members the best benefits as long as I'm able to reach out and touch all of them often. We do have some businesses that put their memberships on hold this year just because rent increases, and we're seeing a few more businesses go out this year. So I'm confident they'll be back as soon as they can, and they let me know too. So we make sure that we are also continuing to offer things for non-members also. I believe that the success of one business is boosted by the ones that are around them. So it does everybody a favor for them all to succeed. So part of Chamber's goals are to offer education opportunities. 2 years ago, we had 3 classes. The year after that, 9. Last year, we had 6, and that was with partnering with Sparklet Designs, who had gotten a contract through the city of Monmouth to offer some small business help. This year, we're going to have at least 7. What happened, I think just this morning or yesterday, about affordable health insurance. K Insurance Group out of Independence has partnered with the Ben Chamber, who has put together this awesome program to offer small group prices at large group prices for small groups, I guess. So now businesses can offer insurance very affordably to their staff, and we really are excited about that because getting business insurance, health insurance for your employees is very expensive for businesses, and if we can find a way for them to do it, what a great draw to come work in Monmouth and Independence, knowing that the employers are able to help out with those things. Then we're going to offer a second one on that pretty soon. And then in the fall, we'll be offering at least 5 classes, maybe more, on emergency preparedness. My goal for this year is to have a whole program for emergency preparedness for businesses. And that's because we kind of outdid the social media classes. So I thought, what big item can we do, and where can we be in a better position if there's an ice storm, a flood, a pandemic? And not all of a sudden be trying to go backwards to try to stay in business. So let's jump ahead of the game. And a lot of cities and chambers in Oregon have already done this. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I just have to make it work for our area. And luckily I have some help with Marilyn Morton to go through that book this week and next week. So we'll be doing that and hopefully printing that out soon enough. And then I'm working with the Oregon Emergency Management on some classes for fall. So super excited about that. And my first aid and CPR has been expired for a while. So this will give me a chance to update that too. And we also want to add a harm reduction portion to that too. So we've been super busy, ribbon cuttings. So as you know, all that were there, little over a year ago, we had the trolley drive through a ribbon, and I ran into that driver on the trolley recently, and she's like, remember me? I was the one that drove through the ribbon. And so that impacted her for sure. And we also had the ribbon cutting at David's house recently, and that is the new youth shelter here in Monmouth. So that was pretty exciting and good to see. Greeters, we're still doing those. We do 12 a year and try to balance between the 2 towns, but they've increased. I think we had standing room only at our one for this month, and so businesses are ready to get to know each other and get to see who their neighbors are and support each other, and that's growing. So that's exciting, and I think that our events help do that, including the Thirsty Thursday. We do 11 of those a year because in December we go out and do a happy hour the Friday before the holidays, before everybody leaves town, and we rotate the restaurants on what we choose for those. Polk County Women in Business had a change this year. It was something I started with the Dallas Chamber when I first started, and attendance was always kind of low. We weren't quite sure. We might have a low one month and the next month it'd be huge, and we just couldn't get any consistency. So we said, let's change it. Let's do 2 breakfasts a year and have a guest speaker and make it a deal. And our first one happened at the Elks Club in, February. And it was completely packed. And the next one will be in September, and we're doing it in Dallas and the Dallas Event Center. So information will be coming out on that and who the speaker is. So we're finding that we're busy people. And add another networking thing every month doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So everybody wants breakfast or at least coffee. So it worked out great. And we'll continue to partner with Dallas Chamber on that too. So it's kind of nice we have that, that collaboration to help support our businesses. The Chamber's social media has blown up. So Facebook, we're up about 93% in all the stats from in 2023. From the year before. In Instagram, we're up about 37%, and I think that's due to my age, nothing else. I'm learning it as I go. But our most popular post, and I don't know if Suzanne's still here, but was the Mr. Rogers Day post of Suzanne and I on the trolley with our masks on. So that was our most popular post in the last year. So that was a fun day. Our mobile app, it's a slow grow. I haven't had time to promote it a lot, but I think that will be something that happens in the next 6 months. If you have not downloaded the mobile app, please do. It mimics our website. It has a tab for parks and tourism type places to go. It has our directory, it has our calendar, and it also has a link to the city website if you want to start a business, and we call it MI means business. So definitely download that, and it will be updated. It's updated about once a month with businesses. So check that out when you have a chance. It's in both Google and Apple stores. Our community awards. So in 2021, when I first started, we were on Zoom. And by 2022, people were biting at the bit to go to an award. So I said, let's show a movie. So we did. And we had about 100 people attend. I'm like, all right, that works. Last month in 2023, we're out at Eola, and we sold out at 160 seats. We had a presenting sponsor for the first time in a really long time, and we actually had more sponsors than we have in years. And I mean, yes, it's a feel good for me, of course, that people are supporting the chamber, but also it means that they're supporting the work that we do. And that is exciting to see. So I'm on the lookout for a bigger location. We don't want anybody that wants to come not be able to come because we don't have a chair for them. So we will be growing next year. And I probably not supposed to say it, but it will be dinner. So it'll be fun. The last few things I want to talk about, well, there's probably a pile, but restaurant tour. We decided to add some new events to our calendar. And mostly because dues revenue does not support a chamber, right? So we had to come up with some ideas as long as it made sense to the businesses. And we always think, you know, well, we've got retail, we've got this, we've got that. But you know what we really have? We have a lot of restaurants and we have a lot of food trucks. And instead of trying to make everything else balance it, why not celebrate what we have? And so a previous town I lived in with the organization I was with, we did a restaurant tour where everybody got tickets and they could go around and sample things at different restaurants. And because I'm always looking for an excuse to ride the trolley, I thought, why not? Let's do that. So in August, on the 24th, we'll be doing a restaurant tour, and that will be a ticketed item and in an afternoon that people can go around to restaurants in both towns and try a sample of their food. So we're super excited about that. And I think that we miss a lot of places and we always go to the same places. So no excuse now if we've tried them all. Another new event that we're going to do with the Friends of the Visitor Center is a turkey trot. And that'll be on Thanksgiving Day, a 5K. 8:30 in the morning, we can go do a little run or a jog or a walk and then go home and get ready for Thanksgiving meal with our family and friends. So we're super excited about that too. I'm going to start training now. Our community partners have been exceptional the last 3 years. I have met and worked with some of the best people in business and in our city governments. So I just want to acknowledge the city of Monmouth for all the support you give me. It's amazing and fun, and getting to know you has been amazing. Central School District, they have been great to work with, and we have great big ideas, and one of these days something's going to click. Minette is so fortunate to be where they chose to do business, as well as you guys chose to have them be your provider here. Monmouth Business Association, Western Oregon, Senator Patterson, and of course all the local organizations, nonprofit, and the businesses. So very good to work with. Some visitor center highlights. So as you know, we're chamber and the visitor center. I consider them to be related, but not the same. So visitor center highlights, we have the gift shop open. If you haven't been by to see, all businesses that are members can put things in there for sale. And it's great because it gives them some extra square footage they don't have to pay rent for. The current big project, which you guys know about, and you're going to hear about again after this and probably in another month, the MyNet utility box project, that's well underway. And we have a new visitor's guide coming out. Rather than be a business directory, it is a visitor's guide with a business directory. So it'll be highlighting things like the trolley, each town, and of course, lots of advertisers in there, such as the hotels and things that had to do with tourism or relocation as much as possible. And then, of course, I've mentioned the turkey trot. Let me see. 2 more things that the Visitor Center, the Friends do. They do the Make Music Day, which is coming up. Make sure it's on your calendar, June 21st. And we had 23 locations this year. We're hoping to get that many again this year, and that is Polk County wide that I do it for. So Monmouth, Independence, and Dallas. This year we have a sponsor for that, and that is K Insurance Group. So we're going to get some T-shirts and have some little merch booths like we're going to a real concert. And we had our Make Music Winter, and that was a huge success. Jeff Witt Insurance sponsored that, and we had about 100 people at the gate. And we had the princesses singing, we had a visit by Santa, and it was a lot of fun, and the kids got to play instruments and drink hot cocoa. What's next? Quickly, the Visitor's Guide and Member Directory, an opportunity to upgrade your listing on the mobile app, the Emergency Preparedness Plan, and fall classes, 2 new events, summer fun and challenges around the utility boxes, and raising funds for a remodel of our conference room. Kelly Capel, who has the other side of the building that she rents from us, has completely remodeled that, and it's beautiful with new offices, and they're growing. And now we look like we have a big storage unit in back. So we would like to raise some money to get some walls put up and have a legit conference room for our members to use. So any questions? Yes.
Thing is, I'm on a seafood diet, seafood eat it. What was the date on that restaurant tour again?
It is August 24th.
August 24th. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. It'll be an afternoon, hopefully beautiful and not too hot.
Thanks for the report. Good information, good work. And this is a question that I've asked in a number of different fronts, but what are you doing or what are your members doing to promote their business, restaurants in particular, around the trolley? You know, I ride the trolley to Independence, and I've told this story, have a couple of beers and ride the trolley back. And they don't seem to really have a way to identify trolley riders. I don't have I don't have a solution here. I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, I don't have one off the top of my head, but I can probably think of something at 2 in the morning because that's when I get my best ideas.
You know, we're trying to broaden the perception and provide different levels of community service that trolley provides. Mm-hmm. And if we could demonstrate increased business interest and business activity,
I think that would definitely help. And maybe we can come up with some kind of punch card program or something. Yeah. Or, something like that that's easy and cost efficient, low cost. That maybe we could get something going like that, maybe a 6-month study or something. I mean, that's the top of my head, but we can definitely talk. So
yeah, I'm just trying to get that. I'm trying to get that concept out there that there's transportation there. That can get you to and from.
I get it. And we have great numbers with the trolley. I mean, every time I hear the new numbers reported from Sabre or someone else, it's astounding how many people have ridden that. And I ride it a lot, just kind of I give tours to people that don't want them. But knowing that the increased attendance at the school, I mean, that alone is a story that means that's worth keeping money invested in and cheaper than a truant officer, So I think the business part of it could be built up a lot. and not just the grocery shopping aspect or, where are people going out? Is it running late enough at night so people can go out at night after work if they want to? There's probably something that we can work on for that for sure. I'm going to give it a lot of thought.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much, Nikki. Really appreciate that. And actually, the next item of business, if you want to join us again, an update on the Minnet boxes. So Phyllis Bowman, our staff report from our Arts and Culture Commission.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councilors. We are back again to approve the rest of the boxes so far that have been designed for Monmouth. So what you have in front of you are 5 boxes. The Arts and Culture Commission is not recommending the box on the top of page 2 because they wanted something a little more composed and just a little more composed. So we're asking for your approval of the other 4 boxes. 5. 4, sorry.
I move to approve the Minnet cabinet mural designs as presented, the 4 that are presented.
I will second.
Okay, moved by Councillor Salinas Oliveros and seconded by Councillor McKeel. Questions about that? Councillor Carey?
Are the 4 that we're looking at, is that the exact design or is that a more or less design?
Okay, so
That's-
sunflowers, bubbles are the design. The Oregon ones are the ones that the students will be painting. So they will not be exactly like this, but this is the goal. Not exactly like this either because I use clip art, but we will be projecting images onto the box, and the students at each school in town will be painting these pictures, and then we'll have an artist that comes along and just kind of touches it up and stuff at the end. But we're trying to get the community involved, and our schools are kind of our best resource. And so between the 2 towns, there'll be 5 boxes that are Oregon themed. So the ones that are approved for Monmouth were the Oregon bird and the Oregon tree.
That's presented as photos on the Oregon deal. Will those be actually 2-dimensional art other than photographs?
They will not be photographs. They'll be painted on by the kids. So we'll give them an outline and they'll paint it in. Yeah. I know it will be beautiful.
It's it'd be nice to have a little clearer picture of what that's going to look like.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm so not an artist. And so this will be projected and the kids will paint it in. So it's going to be very similar to this, if not close to identical. It just won't look like a picture. It'll be hand painted.
But it will be supervised and then
Oh,
and
yeah.
then some touch-up work done. Yeah, I guess what we'd like, if we're going to put ourselves out there like this, we'd like to make sure that it's a positive representation.
No, definitely. And that's why we're saying with the Oregon theme, because the kids have all learned about Oregon and the state birds and the state trees in school, and they'll show an interest in it and hopefully go back over the next few years and know that they were a part of it.
Yeah, sure.
And Nikki, so the 1 box that we would not be approving with this motion, is there an alternate design for that or?
Yes, that's why you guys will be seeing me again, hopefully with the last and final ones. That artist is at work. That box is sponsored by a local business. So she is back at work to come up with a design that takes into consideration what the Arts Commission wanted to see from it. So it'll be something similar but different at the next one.
All right. Seeing no other questions, all in favor of the motion to approve the 4 boxes as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 And none opposed. So thank you. We'll get going on those and we'll see you again, Nikki. Thanks again
you.
for the update.
And watch your social media to see them as they get done. It's pretty cool.
All right. At this time, we do have some finance items before us, which means Finance Director Susie Marston coming up. And first of all, adoption of a supplemental budget.
Good evening, council. Susie Marston, Finance Director for the city. I am here to present resolution number 1985, which is a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 23-24 and directing the Finance Director to make appropriate entries. Since your packet went out, I discovered an error in my supplemental budget, which I corrected and had Phyllis email out to each of you this afternoon. So you should have that in front of you. So this supplemental budget represents the revised spending plan that the council approved in February of this year. And what it does is it recognizes the additional ARPA revenue that we've tagged to put towards the City Hall project, some AV costs for this room, police vehicle for $40,000, and security upgrades in our police department lobby area. We also received additional revenue in the way of interest earned in our special capital reserve fund that I included in this supplemental budget to appropriate to the City Hall project costs. So this supplemental budget, if approved by council, would adjust the 23-24 budget and appropriate those extra revenues going forward. Any questions?
Counselor Carey.
I did not get, or I shouldn't say I didn't get it. I did not see the email on the correction. So if this is the correction, then my apologies. But in your narrative or in your staff report, you indicate that, 500,000 from the ARPA funds would be transferred yet, or would be identified here. And then in the chart, in the resolution, it says 562 ARPA federal grant.
Right.
And is that?
So I believe you're looking at the previous version and not the updated version. So the ARPA federal grant, the budget adjustment should be 552,000, which represents the 450,000 for the City Hall project, 50,000 for the AV install, 40,000 for the police vehicle, and 12 for the security upgrade at the police department.
So it's 552.
It should be 552 for an adjusted budget in the ARPA federal grant for 702,000 instead of the 712.
Yeah, I was just looking at the resolution itself, and okay. And if that was a correction, my
Yeah.
apologies for not reading it.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it sooner.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I move adoption of resolution number 1985, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 and directing the finance director to make appropriate entries.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Salinas Oliveros for the motion and Counselor Oberst for the second.
Madam Mayor, we could just make sure for the record that this
Yes.
is the amended version of the resolution that was emailed out, not the version that was in the packet.
Okay. Do you want to clarify?
No, I think that's fine. As long as
Okay,
it's in the
yeah,
record, that's
thank
what we're
you.
doing. Yeah.
All right, and so the total amount, again, we are approving, just so everyone is clear.
The total amount you're approving in the general fund is $562,000. And in the special capital reserve fund, an adjustment of $10,000.
Okay, everybody good with that? All right, seeing no additional questions, we'll take the roll call, please, Phyllis.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor McKeel, Counselor
Yes.
Salinas Oliveros.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll get that one done, and I'm not sure that the version I have here to sign is right, so I'll double check that. All right, and on to our fiscal policy that we have discussed prior to this.
Okay. So this is resolution number 1986, a resolution amending the fiscal policies for the city of Monmouth and repealing resolution number 1970. You'll recall that I spoke to the council last month about challenges we were having in the general fund and asked if you would consider lowering the reserve requirement, which you all agreed to, lowering it from 15% to 12.5% for fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25. This resolution reflects that change. It is on page 5 of the exhibit. So the intent is to lower the reserve requirement to 12.5%, but review it again next year to see where we're at. And, you know, I think we understand we still have the intention of maintaining that 15%, but where we're at now, we need to lower it to help us balance the budget.
Okay, questions? Yes, Lane?
Just for clarification, I think there may be still an extraneous word in item 1. We're starting with the general fund shall each. And I think that each is probably, should be stricken. Looks like it's left over from the prior version. It's a new sentence. The general fund shall be at least 12.5% of the total fund's operating expenses, and the street fund shall be at least 15%. I don't think each belongs in there.
Oh, yeah.
So we should make that conceptual amendment on adoption. Striking each on the third line of section A1 on page 5. Is that right, Susan?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
I move adoption of resolution number 1985, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for the fiscal year 2023 to 24 and directing the finance director to make appropriate entries. I just did that one, didn't I? But I need to like recover from this one now. I move approval. I'm reading it going, okay, I just heard this. When do I stop reading? Okay, all right. I move approval of resolution number 1986, amending the fiscal policies for the city of Monmouth and repealing resolution number 1970 with the,
Is amended.
as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKeel for the motion, and Councillor Salinas Oliveros for the second. Any additional questions? Yes, Councillor Carey.
It's my annual comment relative to the, what I believe to be too high fund balances that we have in our other enterprise funds. You know, it's the same old saw. You're getting tired of hearing it. But you will continue to until I can come up with a better solution and come up with a number that would make sense. We lowered our street fund in 2019. That seems to be okay. I haven't talked to Russ about it, but I should. I'm not so sure we could do it. And my concern is that can have an impact on rates. And it's got, to me, an outsized impact on our rates and what it might be. But Hopefully I'll come back with a better solution, or with a solution rather than just statement of a problem.
All right. Yes, Counselor Oberst, do you have?
No, I'm sorry, that's all.
All right, seeing no further questions, Phyllis, could you take the roll call, please, on resolution number 1986, a resolution amending the fiscal policies for the city of Monmouth and repealing resolution number 1970 with the slight adjustment.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, thank you very much. And yep, I'm glad we added the piece about checking back on that in a year because we don't want to let that slip by as we continue to work on that. So, all right. And also at this time of year, we look at our investment policy. So Susie, you want to present that for us?
Sure. So this is resolution number 1987, a resolution readopting the city's investment policy and repealing resolution number 1971. I don't have any recommended updates for this year, so this policy will remain the same. Looking back, it looks like we made some pretty extensive updates to this policy in 2022 based on recommendations from the Oregon Short-Term Funds Board. So our policy just requires us to look at this every year and readopt, even if there are no changes.
I move approval of resolution number 1987, readopting the city's investment policy and repealing resolution number 1971.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor McKeel for the motion and Councilor Oberst for the second. Any questions or comments on this? Anything you want to remind us of annually, Councilor Carey, that?
Not on this.
Thank you.
Not on this.
All right. Phyllis, could you please call the roll?
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor Carey.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you for letting me show that I could be on the right page.
Thanks very much, Susie. Appreciate keeping up with the calendar of things that we need to review. So that brings us to an item of business regarding the City Hall closeout. And it's amazing to imagine that we can finally maybe call it done. I'm kind of looking at Randy. I'm not sure about this. Thank you. Kevin will be giving our staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. We are finally there, finally to the closeout of this project. It's been a long time coming and a lot of folks have worked on it, so we really appreciate everything that's come forward. I mean, honestly, work has been underway since the 60s, so we're finally there. I just wanted to thank everybody who's been involved in that. And then I will turn the presentation over to our owner's rep, Randy Isaacs from OTAC.
So just as a general history to finish out the story of how we've gotten into this facility that you have now, as Kevin mentioned, it started back in the 1960s when letters first began circulating that the existing city hall, which used to be a fire station, wasn't safe or appropriate for what the city needed. Fast forward through a number of iterations of staff over generations. In the 2000s, people began saying it's time. And you finally moved forward and got the right momentum and began working on a design in about 8 years ago. That process was iterative and figuring out what was best for the city, what was best for the property. And this design started before COVID, one of the biggest interruptions that we've had in any business process over the last century, barring wars, which generally don't happen here at home. So the original design, the original numbers were based on pre-COVID numbers, and the target was in line with your budget. But then we ran into COVID. We got the design about 95% done. We brought on the general contractor and had the first true estimates done. A number of proof estimates were done during design that showed the design was on target.
Once we got into COVID and then ran the numbers and what the availability was, the estimates came in about 60% over budget, really, really strong. Western Oregon had been providing project management services to that point, but they had a staffing change and weren't able to provide that support anymore. That's when I got to come in the front door and see all the opportunities that the project had. A budget 60% over and a lot of needs. So at that point, we got the whole team together and we said, how can we maximize value with what we have left? And an exhaustive process was begun to look at, do we start with a fresh design? Do we shrink the design we have? And what can we do to get this project moving forward? We came up with value engineering estimates that cut us down to a budget of around 8.5 million for the hard costs, plus the soft costs that it would take on top of that for around $10.5 million total. But it was also envisioned we'd be saving some more money off of that through further exercises and as the numbers were getting detailed. And as we figured out a little bit better what the design was and what the priorities were. So after we took off the external costs, there were some things that were possibly street improvements or grants that were expected. We were just over $8 million for the building itself. So we rolled into construction highly confident that we would have a great building. And that was balanced with a very tight budget, knowing that there wasn't a lot of extra money. We kept our contingencies down at around 1%, when normally in construction you would expect around 10%. So during the course of construction, we ended up with change orders of around $420,000, which was 4.9%. So we did go over of what our budget was in that area. And it was also realized a little bit later that some of the monies that we were anticipating coming in, contributions for the solar array and a few other things, didn't fall through as well. So in the end, we ended up with a building that was a little bit later than expected because of value engineering and some supply chain items, and a budget that was a little bit stronger. But I'm hoping you're seeing that this is a valuable building and it seems to be a great part of your community.
So with that, unless you have any questions, that concludes our report.
Well, I think the next piece then is about the budget. I mean, there was a lovely handout in our packets, so I think that's important to get into the record of where we ended up with that. So do you want to go through that with us?
Sure. So you'll see the flow chart there that shows where the funding came from for the building, and kind of and where it went. So we had the bond, the transfer from the Monmouth Urban Renewal Agency, the special capital reserve that the city had been building up over a period of a couple of years, and also included some property sales as well that contributed to that. We had the ARPA funding, the streets fund contributed some as well to do some of the work on Warren Street, and then the general fund contributed the remainder. And that all went into the building, which has come out to about 10.72 million. And of that, our ending numbers have been about 8.97 for the construction, 1.38 for the professional services like the architect and some other, the testing that has to get done and things like that. And then owner costs of around 370,000. And that's the AV equipment, it's permitting, it's a host of smaller items that weren't broken out specifically. We can, if you'd like that information, we can certainly provide that. So that in kind of as an overview of where the funding came from and where it went. And then on the last page is a little more detail on each of that. So we broke down the special capital reserve fund showing the different transfers, and those were transferred in over a period of, I believe, about 2 years, 2 separate fiscal years. The contributing to that special reserve fund. And then the construction costs, as Randy said, the original estimate ended up at about 8.5 million, and then with the change orders brought it up to about the 8.9. And then you see the other professional services and the owner costs broken out there as well.
Counselor Carey?
You know, I guess this is, because I've tracked that whole thing, you know, we started out at 9 million, as you indicated, Randy. I'm talking about for the project, we raised money based on 9 million. It went to 9.3, then it went to, in February of 23, the estimate was 9.97, 9,970,000. And to where we are right now, a fair amount of that was beyond our control. You know, the radon thing, you know, you didn't mention that specifically, but that was a deal. There's a lot of change orders, and I'm wondering, as the owner's rep, which is our representative on that, how much did you push back against our change orders? Because construction companies are famous for change orders. And how much, and to that point, more specifically, what kind of articulation did you have with city management? Probably a little ahead of Kevin, but he would have been the guy had he been here. But, you know, we spent a hell of a lot more money there than we anticipated, and a lot of it for good reason. But I just want to know how much pressure, how much pushback you had.
So in working in a construction manager, general contractor type of a contractual relationship with our builder, it's completely open book. When we have something that's a change order, the architect specifies how it will be built, whatever the changes are that are needed. And then the contractor provides the actual estimates from all of their subcontractors, and it goes down to how many hours, what the rate is per hour, the cost of materials. We have the engineering team from the architect look at all those estimates to ensure that they're in line with the quantities of the work. And then our team also looks at the hourly rates. We live and breathe this on a daily basis. I can tell you what an electrician earns and what the normal burden is. So we've looked at each of those and we push back on almost all of them. So if it's too many hours for what we expect production to be, if the material costs are out of line, we're pushing back continuously. There isn't a single change order cost that comes through without going through my mind personally and the whole engineering staff validating those costs before they're accepted. And at this point, we still have the ability to go back through the books and say, did it actually take that amount of hours? Is there something inappropriate that went on? There's very little incentive for the builder to do that because they make their markup outside of that, and the risk is high. So we do our best to squeeze every dollar that we can out of the budget, because we know, you know, the chair I'm sitting on could have been sacrificed because I didn't push back far enough on the contractor.
Well, thank you for doing that. And there was reference to the fire alarm system that you mentioned that would be purchased at a later time. Do we have an anticipated revenue stream for that?
We don't have it identified at this time. It's something that we'll have to work on
Sure.
going forward and build it into a capital improvement project.
Sure.
It should be landing on a CIP list in the relatively near future, but
Yeah.
just given the city's budget right now, it hasn't not feasible at the moment.
Yeah.
And I want to, just add that it isn't technically required that we do that. So this is something that the city's going to do to enhance the usability and safety of the building.
Yeah. And we've, as a council, have been, pretty consistent on the health and safety of our employees. And so we would support that, but we just have to find the revenue stream in a timely way to get that paid for. And then I guess the final question that I have is, there's a pretty substantial general fund pull from the, transferring in from the general fund on the reserves. It's like $950,000. And I have not located that in either of our budgets that we've got going forward for a fund balance in our general fund.
I think Susie can answer that better than I can for the detail on how that was pulled.
Yeah, it's. Oh, don't go too far, Randy.
So the general fund contributed about 950,000 towards this project. It is hard to track, but it essentially came out of the reserves that the city was carrying forward year to year over the course of the project. So over 2 or 3 fiscal years.
When did that, I mean, I'm confused by that because we wouldn't have been pulling from reserves because we thought we had it funded. Or in the early years.
Right. But if, I don't know if I can explain it real clear, but the way it was budgeted, we started with a fund balance and then we had, our recurring expenditures and revenues. But then we have the one-time costs, like the city hall costs, that pull the reserves down. So it was budgeted and planned to pull the reserves down until the project got completed. Does that make sense?
Well, it does after the fact.
Which I think is when we found this, right? I mean, that was part of the thing. When Susie came in trying to track and Christy came in and said, where's all this spending been and how much have we really spent? They found there wasn't a line item that said we're going to take this much out of general fund and put it towards City Hall project. Those funds were not clearly delineated, is my understanding, and only when Susie went back those several years to try to come up with this number for us that she found that.
As I look at the general fund 5-year financial plan, there's ending fund balance, including reserves. For 23, 24, I'm sure, and again, I don't know my way around these things at all. So I just look at numbers and if they make sense, they're okay. But if they don't, I ask. That's showing a positive balance of 998,000. And I understand that it wasn't all taken this year, I guess.
Right. It happened over the course of a couple of years. So we started 23-24 with a fund balance of $1,580,000, and we're ending the year with that, actually a little less than 998,000.
Well, this is very difficult when you got transitional leadership and all the things that Randy talked about, all of that. It's still not clear to me where the impact really hits. I mean, we're balancing it on the schematic, and we're balancing and we're paying for everything, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out what the impact is, all across the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. That 0.95, that 950,000 is the impact to the general fund that was not originally planned, but was paid out. Things were paid out of the general fund over the years that were identified as being City Hall expenses, not from the funds that had been originally identified.
So is that how you got to 950? You went back and identified expenses that were City Hall related in prior year budgets, sort of.
Well, this whole project was funded out of the general fund, and as we went along, you had the general obligation bond that was put into the general fund of $3 million. We had transfers coming in from the Urban Renewal Agency of 3.65. we had transfers coming in from the special capital reserve of almost 2.3. And then we had, I'm forgetting the smaller amounts, but so anyway, it was, the expenses all live in the general fund, and a majority of it is offset by those, the bond and the transfers that came in, and the balance being just expenses. That's the impact to the general fund, the 950,000.
Madam Mayor, if I can.
Sure.
Just to explain it maybe just a little bit more succinctly. If you look at our ending fund balance, if we started at 1.5 million, we're now going to be just under $960,000 or $980,000. That's about 500,000 or so that we spent down this fiscal year. Much of that is attributable to the city hall costs. If you then take the 500,000 that we brought in from the ARPA funds, that's your $1 million. And that was all spent for city hall. That's kind of where you get to that point. Over time, our ending fund balance has been spent down. And what happens is you will appropriate more than you're going to spend for the year. And so I think that as the project was being tracked, you appropriate more than you're going to spend because you need to make sure you have an appropriation. But then when we got down to, hey, let's look at these numbers and make sure where we are, we know where we are, that's when we discovered, oh, we've been spending down over time for this project. It just wasn't apparent because it was masked by being in the general fund. If we ever did a big project like this again, I might recommend that we keep it all in a special project fund. So it's really clear how much is being spent. Now, Susie's gone through and she has all of the expenses in an account. So she knows exactly what's been spent on this project because it's all funded with a special account number in the financial software.
But it was not that way when you got here.
Well, it was all being coded. We have an activity number for this project that the expenses are coded to. And so that's how we're able to track it. That's how Randy's able to build the reports that you're seeing in your packet. Or that's where the numbers come from.
You know, and Christy, to your point, that it's represented that the 500,000 from ARPA is in addition to the 950,000.
That's coming into the general fund as a transfer from ARPA.
Right.
And so it's kind of like balancing out. But you know that we spent that 500,000 on the city hall project.
Sure. In addition to
Drawing down the reserve.
950 out of the reserve, or 950,000 out of the reserve.
Right. And part of that came in this fiscal year, that about 500,000.
Yeah.
And the rest was absorbed into prior fiscal years. You just didn't notice it because your appropriations are always greater than what you plan to spend.
Yeah, our fund balance in the general fund has been going down for a variety of reasons, and I suppose that's one of them. In the last couple of years, that's an extra contributor. Well, it's unclear. I'll do some more reading, but it is what it is, and it's paid for. I just hope that the impact is not greater than we anticipate in our general fund.
Well, and I can say that the last major piece, substantial piece, should be that fire alarm system. The building is complete, so there's not anything lingering out there that is going to be a major bomb or a substantial negative impact. The project is virtually complete with that exception. And the fire alarm is not really, unfortunately, not a piece because it was not planned in, it was not required by code. So it's a separate piece from this project.
And so thanks, Susie. I think that's all for you. And so my other question is, I'm not seeing as much blue tape. I used to notice quite a few pieces as I'd walk around, but do we still have a punch list and like courtyard improvements and things coming that
Yes, we are still in the punch list process, which it's hard to create a definite black and white line in the sand. But it begins the process of the 1-year warranty. And over the course of that 1 year, you're still going to discover more and more items, and we'll continue to have the contractor here improving the final quality to make sure that all of the discovered issues are addressed during that warranty as well.
And for the courtyard specifically, we do have benches and garbage cans at Public Works that we will be looking at repurposing. They need a little bit of TLC before they're appropriate for the plaza out here, but we already have those on hand. They won't be an additional cost.
Okay, so the clock starts ticking now because we're declaring it officially closed out. So that warranty clock starts, we actually get the keys. It's our building.
It doesn't quite start yet because we're still missing the closeout documents. So the official ticking, and that's going to be something that's going to be a little bit of a negotiation between us and the contractor as well. But they have not completed the as-builts and the O&M manuals as yet. They're still in process. So once they turn those over to us, then we take full and complete ownership of the building. But we certainly have the keys to everything.
All right. That was my question. All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Randy, for coming down. Appreciate it. Thank you, Kevin, so much for your work on this. All right, and that brings us to our Community and Economic Development Director, Suzanne Duffner, to talk to us about a potential right-of-way agreement.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, and good evening, members of the City Council. I have a report tonight for ordinance number 1413, and this is an ordinance to approve a right-of-way encroachment agreement in one of our recently built subdivisions. This is Hoffman Estates up there off of Hoffman Road. So as part of that subdivision development, the developer placed several improvements in our public right-of-way. And so in order for them to get permission to keep those improvements there, we don't have a right-of-way encroachment permit. So this is the process that we use to approve those improvements and allow them to remain there in perpetuity over time and spell out the conditions for their placement. So the 4 specific improvements that we're referring to here in the agreement include a screening wall, a concrete wall that's behind the sidewalk on Hoffman Road, an entry sign, a couple of water features on either side of Broadway Avenue, the new road leading into the development, and some benches located throughout the subdivision. So working with the city attorney, we prepared an agreement that is included as an attachment in your packets this evening. So it spells out again what the requirements to the developer are and any subsequent owners of the subdivision or homeowners association. So that agreement has been approved by the developers. They have signed a copy of that. And then the recommendation is to for the council direct the city manager to sign that encroachment agreement. And we do have the ordinance prepared for you this evening. It includes an emergency clause in it so we can make this effective immediately since the improvements have been placed. We're kind of catching up a little bit here. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the agreement.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Just
Thank
for
you,
the council's
Lane Shetterly.
information, some of you, I think, were probably on, I don't know if, yeah, anyway. This is the same approach that we used in the same basically form of agreement and ordinance for the sculptures on Monmouth Avenue that overhang the sidewalk in front of is it the library, I think it is?
The flowers.
Yeah, same concept here. And since this has been prepared for first and second reading tonight and an emergency clause, you'll need to do both readings and then vote on it tonight. And you can do that as long as it's unanimously approved by the members of the council who are present.
Thanks for making this happen because I think these are nice little amenities in any neighborhood.
Sure.
And I'm glad to see these went in. And if nobody has any objections, I'd like to move to adopt ordinance 1413.
Yes, I was going, please let me I'll do the first reading first, and then I would entertain a motion to do the second reading and adoption. So the first reading of a special ordinance number 1413, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to approve the installation by WD Developers LLC of certain improvements within the Hoffman Estates subdivision and granting an exception to the provisions of Monmouth City Code 12.10.160 and 12.15.050 and declaring an emergency. And if amenable, would entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance, conduct the second reading and adoption.
So I would like to move adoption of ordinance 1413 and direct the city manager to sign the right-of-way encroachment agreement for Hoffman Estates subdivision. And encourage Madam Mayor to have a second reading.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Oberst for the motion and Councillor McKeel for the second. So to conduct the second reading of the ordinance authorizing, well, first of all, it has to be unanimous to move forward on this before we can read it and adopt it. So are there any objections to continuing?
Well, I have a question. How much encroachment are we dealing with? And how did this happen?
Yeah, so I was just looking to see if we spell out, all structures shall maintain a 5-foot setback. Then, I mean, we have our public street right of way that is defined on the subdivision construction plans. And that includes a public utility easement behind the sidewalk. So I apologize, I don't have those specific widths in front of me with this agreement, but that's the area that it's talking about, that we're constrained within that area. And then the as-built construction drawings show that on the plan. So any changes to that, the developer has to come and ask for city approval to move any of those structures. So
We're requiring them to be 5 feet back from the water line. I'm assuming that's enough. But as I read this, I assumed that they had built their retaining wall and entry and sign and water work too close to Hoffman Road. And
yeah, I don't know if it was too close to Hoffman Road. It was just in the public right of way.
Which would be along Hoffman Road.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I think to your point, the cart got a little bit before the horse in terms of ideally we would have had this agreement in place and approved before they started construction. But,
if it's a foot, we dealt with that up here at Momiji.
Right.
If it's 5 feet, that might create a nicer lot in that
Right.
first row of homes.
Yeah, I can say that, I mean, our public works staff do go out and do inspections, and so they were able to verify the location and make sure that our improvements, our utilities wouldn't be compromised. This is more of, again, agreement, I think, that spells out the indemnity for the city and any conditions about modifying those changes. So we can't go back retroactively necessarily change the way that process we learned, through each subdivision of, how to, I think, monitor that a little bit better for process improvements, to your point on that. But, yeah.
That's what I'm getting to,
Yeah.
because you could modify, I mean, whether it's a lot line, do we need a lot line adjustment on any of that? Or rhetorically speaking?
No, this so allowing them permission to keep those improvements in our right of way.
Right, but they
eliminates
put them
the
there
need.
incorrectly to begin with.
I don't know that that's a true statement, that they put them there incorrectly to begin with. It was, it was part of, utilizing, I think, the space to the maximum ability in terms of the density and the lot sizes and meeting the lot standards. And then, not putting them on private property where each part of the fence, now encroaches into somebody's backyard to be able to repair them. So, yeah, I don't know that it's a true fact to say that it was put there incorrectly. It's just, it needs to go, it's not uncommon, I guess, to have things encroach on the city's right of way. We just want to make sure that there are protections in place for both the city and the developer that acknowledge that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Counselor Oberst?
And the thing that I think is important here is point 7 on this agreement that says that Monmouth can require the developer at its sole cost and expense to relocate or modify installation of the improvements if necessary for Monmouth to conduct any work in the right of way, including but not limited to blah, blah, blah. So if in fact these things that were built in our right of way wind up being in the way of our right of way, we can have them remove them at their expense. And it doesn't really wind up, costing the city anything to allow these to exist.
No, and I would never suggest that they be removed. I'm just trying to figure out how they got there in the first place.
Counselor McHugh?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Ms. Duffner, if they had done this through a request first, this is still what would have happened. It's just that they
Yes,
did it
correct.
before.
Right.
But you would have approved this if they had just presented it, or however that works.
So it's my understanding, and I'm looking to we don't have, that's why I was saying we don't have a right-of-way encroachment staff level permit to grant, staff doesn't have that authority, is my understanding, to grant an encroachment use of our right-of-way. And so that's the reason that comes before the council in this ordinance agreements, so that we have authority to allow that.
Okay, to change my question then. What they have now, you would have submitted it to council prior to it being built?
Yeah,
And this is
ideally.
like the same thing, only it's already done.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. At this point then, if I have a consensus to move forward, if everyone will be in approval, I will do the second reading of special ordinance number 1413, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to approve the installation by WD Developers LLC of certain improvements within the Hoffman Estates subdivision and granting an exception to the provisions of Monmouth City Code 1210.160 and 1215.050 and declaring an emergency. And there wasn't a motion to adopt. So I will ask Phyllis for the roll call, please.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros? Aye. Counselor Oberst?
Yes.
Counselor Carey?
Aye.
Counselor McKeel?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right. Thanks for getting that cleaned up. So
great.
like you say, if there's liability issues and concerns, we know we're covered. So thank you. That brings us to our reports. And this evening, I do have a quick report. Actually, we have an issue before us. We did make those changes to our transportation committee. Our Traffic Safety Commission has become our Transportation Commission, and we have received some applicants to that commission because we did want to expand that, and those were sent out for consideration. And I would entertain a motion to appoint Kyle Janssen and John Love to the Transportation Commission.
I would move approval of both of these folks to the Transportation Commission. As the council liaison there, I would note that both of these folks expressed interest around bike ped stuff, and I think that's part of what going to transportation instead of just traffic has done, has really drawn attention to that aspect of getting around our community. So I would move approval of both. Thanks.
I'll second that really long motion.
Thank you, Counselor Oberst, for the long motion and Counselor McKeel for the succinct second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Great. Yeah, this is exciting to see folks with different interests and sort of our old bike ped committee. I know Kyle was a long time part of that, getting a new focus, so that's wonderful. Also, then I will mention that, well, actually, I'll just give my board and commission report. It's budget season. Y'all may have noticed. I want to thank everybody again for the attention placed on getting our budget approved, and the work is ongoing on that. But also, MyNet had its budget meeting, and so I do want to report that the MyNet budget committee met and approved MyNet's 24-25 budget as well. Right now, it's MyNet has obviously placed a lot. I mean, a lot of its growth is based on the Dallas market. A lot of that then expansion there is because of a grant that was received through ARPA funding from MyNet. They were able to expand and put gig speed internet out at our fairgrounds, which has long been a dead zone. So that Rick Rial expansion, and now they are actually expanding out South Dallas and towards Falls City. So that has been great. That obviously has been a blessing for folks out there who've not had access to high-speed internet. And so now, looking forward, there was an interesting discussion about sort of what else will they be doing. I don't know. We all know that they are now offering multi-gig service, and we do have customers for that here in our community, and yet it is not costing us anymore at this time. So that is a great opportunity for growth. They looked at rate increases. Obviously, we're all considering rate increases for our utilities, and they are not recommending that at this time because of the competition. So being, not a utility exactly, but in a very competitive market with private enterprise, they are bringing in a consultant to do a rate study and review that because the rates have not changed since July of 2022. So they are really talking about some of the other, I think they've done a really good job of honing in on what their services are, how we can deliver them cost effectively and save money. But the budget was approved to continue to not only pay the full debt service for the regular payments that are due on MyNet's financial instruments, but also to continue to pay on what was that promissory note, which bundled all of their past payments that the cities made for them. So that is all considered in the coming year budget, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to count on that. So interesting, they discussed about their compensation study, and they use for their compensation study sort of the technology telecom industry, but that telecom industry is dominated by huge corporate. So when you're comparing a CFO to a CFO, it's a little bit different scale. So Budget Committee did a great job, talked through what we really need to be looking at to keep MyNet efficient, effective, and providing service to our communities. So that budget was also approved. And the next MyNet meeting is actually tomorrow. The board will meet tomorrow. So that's my board and commission report. Do we have other board and commission reports? Councilor Ober.
Tree board had its post tree planting meeting. That was a very successful tree planting. We had a bunch of athletes come over from Western to help, and we got a total of 8 trees planted. I checked on a couple of them. They seem to be doing well so far. Of course, it's only been a couple of weeks. The tree board will be taking the summer off. So that's where we are there. Thanks.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Arts and Culture Commission met on May 16th. We reviewed the Minot cabinet designs and approved the ones that we brought to you this evening. Two of our Arts and Culture Commissioners are reaching out to the City of Golden, Colorado for permission to use their Art in Public Spaces handbook and forms as a template for our handbook and forms that applications that we would like as well. And so we're currently working on a handbook, but we wanted to ask for that permission to go in and update, since their handbook is very detailed, really well done, and I think will really set a great example of what we can do with our art and public spaces here in the city. And then we had Suzanne Duffner came to present about the City Hall Alley project, shared ideas and information. I don't believe anything is final yet, but really to keep us informed of what's going on. We had a brief discussion about rotating art here in the City Hall, but we've determined to wait on the final process until our handbook is completed, Arts and Culture Handbook is completed this summer. Our goal is to have that completed by June, because we too want to take July and August off. So we are going to meet again on June 20th to hopefully finalize the Arts and Culture Handbook.
Great, thanks. Counselor McKeel.
Yes, I have the library report. Just the library is working on a really fun project that I think is going to come off. They're going to have a self-published author program at the library. So we have a lot of authors in town here, and we're going to be hearing from them. We also have some good news. We have our children's librarian is taking her maternity leave, and we're expecting to see really fun baby pictures. Oh, no, wait, we are actually looking for volunteers for summer reading program for all ages. And if anybody wants to help with the summer reading program for kids and adults, they should contact the library director for information about how to volunteer. This one actually made me think of you, Counselor Carey. There's a library road trip coming up to visit libraries in the CCRLS system. So you could take the trolley down to the Independence Library, have a beer at one of the pubs down there, and then around the corner. That's right, and then head off to McMinnville. It won't be a trolley to there, but anyway, the fun road trip will be June 1st to August 24th. You can sleep in your own bed at night. Just pick up a passport from the library and there's a prize at the end. Won't be a glass of wine probably, but it'll be a good, check out all the libraries in our area. The library is also examining staff workflow, and in light of the reduced budget that's coming up, and just good news, they don't anticipate any reduction in our library hours. So they are going to be more efficient with what we have. And I just want to take kind of a bragging moment here with the library. We have 9 staff, and just want to say that 4 of them have a master's in library science. So they have the top credential for a librarian, and we have 4 people with that. So I'm actually very proud of our library. With that, you're going to see some of the other stats that are coming up when you have professionals at work. So in 2024, the number of visitors that we're having compared to 2023, looks like we're going to have an increase of 27% visitation in the library. And we'll also are looking at an increase in our circulation this year. And we had 140 programs that were attended by at least 4,000 people. So we have a very active, well-functioning, and happy library. And our next meeting is going to be at the Public Works office, coming your way, because we want to be able to broadcast the library meetings, and that'll be on June 12th at 7 a.m. So if you're awake at 7 a.m., you can join us. And bring your coffee. And that's all I have.
And I will say, that is a great meeting room. My net meets there as well, and it's a great meeting room, so. Okay, other boards and commissions? Planning Commission didn't have any business before. All right, that is what we have, so that takes us to our report from Christy Worster, almost coming up on her last reports to us.
I've got a couple months left.
I know.
July 12th. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Phyllis Bowman, our city recorder, has advised me that the election packets will be available for the mayor and city council positions on June 3rd. Just wanted to let you all know that's coming up. With regard to upcoming council meetings, I understand that there's been discussion in the past about the first meeting in August following on National Night Out. So I wanted to just poll the council to see if you would like to hold council on August 6th or not, so that we can plan our future agendas as we're putting together our work program.
Yeah, I think we have talked about that in the past, that here's a big community event that really is our police department is a big, huge part of, and we aren't ever able there to support it because it's always the first Tuesday in August.
Is there anything that says we have to meet on Tuesday? Could we shift the day?
Well, I think if we decide we don't want to meet that day, we do have the ability to work the rest of the things into our other meetings. That's what we're trying to figure out. So I think looking ahead, we can skip that meeting and be able to get everything in we need to.
We've talked about this, that it's an opportunity missed, I think, to not be able to participate in that. And if we could work with, support our police department in that and they us, I think it'd be good. And whether we cancel the meeting or whether we move it to a different date, it's immaterial to me, but I think we ought to find a way to participate from my perspective.
Okay, I think consensus, let's go ahead and plan not to hold the meeting, and if we get closer to August and need to fill in something, we can. Because Christy won't be here and she doesn't really care what we do in August.
I'm asking for a friend. Okay, then the second question, moving back earlier a month to the month of July 2nd, your council meeting is just 2 days prior to our big 4th of July event and festivities. Staff has a lot of involvement in that, I'll say. And so the question is do you want to hold a council meeting on July 2nd?
If we don't have to, it depends on, what's on the agenda, but if we can schedule around those 2 dates and still get what we need done, I'm fine with that.
I know Christy and I talked about an alternate for that night at some point. Very soon, we would like to have a work session, a brief work session about the direction we got from the budget committee to look at additional revenue for public safety. And that won't be ready in time to adopt our budget, but that would be a possibility, I think, if we didn't have a full meeting. But if we haven't found time for that work session, to potentially just have a brief work session on a single issue, if that works for folks.
July 1st is somebody's birthday, so I'd rather not on the first.
July
The
2nd.
second works.
It's the second would be our normal.
I would agree to that for a special work session if we need to do that. Yeah.
So we would just limit the agenda on July 2nd to that work session item of a potential a discussion on public safety fee. And then moving on to my next item would be the recommendation would be to follow up after we've got some input from the council on our proposals and what we might be missing, then having a town hall meeting with the public on July 11th.
Would that be over the budget or
The
the
two-
housing issue? Like, what would be the agenda for that town hall?
The
On
two-
July 11th, you said?
Yes, the two items would be an introduction to your new city manager as well as a discussion on a proposed public safety fee. That kind of
Yeah, let's get started.
sound like a good
So
plan?
add those to the calendar. July 2nd would be our normal meeting. We'll, if everything works out, we would be able to have a limited brief work session on, and no meeting on August 2nd, and a town hall tentatively scheduled for here for July 11th. Okay? And the topics, fairly, at this point, things we know we want to discuss, but we don't know for sure that will be the total agenda. So, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, and then just one final item with regard to the trolleys. I think you may have seen the brief statement that was put in the Friday notes about one of our trolleys, the hybrid unit, is out. And one of the issues that's related to that is that the manufacturer of that particular unit is no longer in business. So the trolley supplier is offering alternative solutions, one of which is to replace that hybrid unit with a used one that they would purchase, but it would have no warranty. The second is to consider converting that trolley to just a gas engine. And so staff is working on that. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. We're pursuing all avenues to ensure that we do have a warranty through the provider. And if we can ensure that we have that work done under warranty and that it continues under the original warranties, that's the direction we're leaning towards. But I did want to let you know that that is an issue right now that we're working through.
Does that impact the operating schedule at all, having one trolley down?
We have the other two trolleys. Kevin, do you want to come up and add
Yeah,
anything to the
Kevin, if you
conversation?
can. I'm not sure how they rotate or if it's literally just a backup or if it fits into the driver break schedule or what.
We do have 3 separate trolleys and at any one time we have 2 on the road. So we typically do have another vehicle in case something like this happens. And in the event that one of our other trolleys is taken out of service for a reason, Chariots will use one of their fleet to pick up the slack on that. So our service won't go down and won't necessarily be impacted. It's just going to look different for a little bit if that happens, if we have 2 vehicles down.
Perfect, thanks. All right. Yes, that takes us to council comments or questions or announcements.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a question about the public comment that was emailed to us, and if somebody was going to get back to us on his public comment and the questions he was asking. Like, who's going to take care of that, I guess? Or is it does it go into a record?
Yeah, we received that this evening. It came in late this afternoon, and really is about an issue for parking. Someone who has a large truck and that a commercial truck driver that parks the commercial truck in front of his home. And so I don't think anyone, obviously Christy hasn't even seen it, doesn't look like the chief has anything. So I think at this point, what we'll say is we received the comment and we'll ask them to get back to us on what the resolution might be on this, what the issue is. So I'm sure we'll hear from the chief back on this. Lane?
Madam Mayor, just reporting the county commission election results that we have an interest in. It looks like Lyle Mordhorst has secured more than 50% of the vote. So that will elect him to the commission.
I always tell people on election night, I'm always looking at Lane because I know he's got the bead on.
There were a lot of other races of interest, but I thought that one would be.
Thank you. Other council comments or announcements? Councilor
Two things quickly. One of the things that I've been working on is serving on the Transportation Systems Plan Advisory Group. And we had our third meeting looking at some of the initial suggestions for future projects and ideas for how to improve transportation around town. Been very impressed with the consultant who we're working with. We've come up with some good ideas. There's room for a few more to squeeze in, I think, but it's good stuff. Some of it is beyond our control because ODOT owns it, but we can make suggestions. And if we have the projects on books, there's always the possibility of reaching out and asking for grant money down the road somewhere. There's going to be another public input session coming up early June. So keep your radar up for that opportunity to come in and see what they've got up their sleeve. And we'll have another meeting or two as a group to move this forward before we get to the final document. The other comment I'd like to make is about our alien invaders from Asia, peacocks. And note that just before I became mayor in 2006, Hal Schilling was our interim city manager. On his last night, which was my first night, we handed him an award with an engraving of a peacock, and he commented that as a child, he thought peacocks were the most amazing, gorgeous birds on the planet, and if he ever saw another one, it'd be too soon, because he had to deal with the peacocks so much when he was here. At one point, we had over 20 down at the far end down Olive Way. That had slowly dwindled. By 2012, we were down to around 5 hens and 3 or 4 peacocks, and of course, every year that meant more eggs, and that meant more babies. The neighbors were pretty good about trying to keep things under control. I made a comment then that peacocks can live 30 years, and I didn't know if people really wanted to pick up eggs for 30 years. But boy, it'd be nice if they'd pick a gender. Last year, we were down to a number of peacocks, at least 1 hen, and I do remember 1 brood going by. It appears this year that we're down to 4 peacocks and 0 peahens. And I don't know whether someone chose a gender, as I suggested many years ago, or what, but it may be that the ongoing problem of proliferation may be gone while leaving us with the enjoyable beauty of 4 peacocks wandering around the neighborhood. Although I will say right now they are desperately calling their hens who don't seem to be showing up. So they're being very noisy these days. It is really nice to see those birds in the neighborhood. They are stunning. I saw one the other day on the MES grounds with its tail feathers spread. Just beautiful, beautiful birds. But I think our overpopulation problem, at least for now, seems to be under control.
I appreciate hearing you say something nice about them, Councilor Obers. That might be a first for me.
I've always loved public works.
Other comments or announcements? Thank you, Councilor McKeel.
I just want to acknowledge that this week is Public Works Week, and we should have a big banner right across there. And so everybody acknowledge all the great service from the Public Works staff. Also, yes. And June 1st begins Pride Month, and we'll have another big celebration in the park from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we'll have, I think, like 2 or 2.5 hours of music this year. So it's a big, and we have over 50 vendors. We had to kind of spread out from the amphitheater into Main Street Park. So it'll be a really great celebration. Coming up Juneteenth, we'll also have a celebration at the Senior Community Center from 6:30 to 8. So more information on that. We'll have a couple of speakers for Juneteenth. And that's all I have.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Could I read the land acknowledgement, please?
Sure.
Would you like to? We would like to acknowledge that Indigenous tribes and bands have been on the lands here and throughout Oregon since time immemorial. It is not lost on us that the Willamette Treaty forcibly removed these people from their homelands in 1855 to 1856, the year that the city of Monmouth was founded. We recognize the pre-existing and continued sovereignty of the federally recognized tribes that are a vibrant part of this region today. The Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, and thank them for sharing their perspective on how we might care for one another and the land so it can take care of us. We commit to engaging in a respectful and successful partnership as stewards of these lands. Thank you.
Mayor Kins, I'd like to make a comment. Yes. I left the comment on your place because the gentleman was supposed to come to speak tonight, and he thought he would go over 3 minutes, so he wanted to give you a written copy. As it turned out, he was online, and I asked him if he was going to speak, and he said no, because he thought it'd be longer than his 3 minutes, so that's why you received it in paper.
Appreciate that. It's always helpful too, so there's a lot of information in there. Thank you, Phyllis. Yeah. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you all very much. And don't forget, I'll plug for Phyllis. She should have handed you your minutes for the budget committee and an opportunity to say whether or not you
This
have any
conference is no longer being
approval of those.
recorded.